Cowboy Jim. I I have premised all my YouTube stuff in an effort, a warfare against child abuse, abuse of any kind, and I have been privileged to understand a couple of things. Not many, but I mean a few. And when I study my YouTube videos, I do it from a standpoint of vanity. I do it from a standpoint of I care enough that I want to do well enough. Let me use the word good enough, that people in their busy day will take the time out of their day. It's not a small thing. So what I have done is I have shortened my videos, by 2/3, minimum, and I have tried to understand what causes a person to decide to allocate their 20 minutes, or sometimes it's a tiny bit more. I'm sorry. I'm working towards a 20. To allocate their valuable time to watch something that a rancher, a man who is trying to, with some level of integrity, that I barely am able to retain. I know myself. I have studied myself for many, many years. I have stated, let me say, it's a title. Many times it's a title. Sometimes it's presenting what you hope to say in such a manner that it's there quickly, that you capture a person's interest. I'm not sure how this will grab you, but I have stated in the past that I can walk into a room and come very, very, very close to being able to point out those who have been used and abused. And if you are attentive, you can look at the outside, yes. But there are many justifications for how a person looks on the outside. Myself, this is all I have to work with. Oh, it is. Okay. A lot of times when I am looking mostly at ladies, because quite frankly, mostly ladies have had the horror of being abused, rarely by a mother or by a lady, mostly by people who have male parts. They're not men, because a man would not inflict upon a child what has been done for centuries, almost with impunity. Not quite. Too close. And little kids are condemned by child abusers to a life of unquestioned horror, condemnation, self-condemnation. The recriminations, self-recrimination upon those children. It is positively abhorrent. Many people are very, 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 very hard on God, and they don't understand, and I don't understand any of this crap. But people condemn God for giving us freedom of choice. He does not compel nor force you to choose to accept Him. He gives you an option. Unfortunately, that option is an ongoing battle of what is called good and evil. You know evil when you see the result of a lifetime of evil. But resident within our hearts is the potential, almost on a daily basis, to choose to exemplify both good and evil. In our hearts, we can choose to care for the brokenhearted. If you were a poker player, if you were a fighter, if you were a boxer or something like that, you would study your opponent. As when I walk into a room, I study the people in the room. I study their eyes. I study their physicality. I don't know that I have the liberty, and I don't think I do, because it would be presumptuous, and not kind, if I were to delineate, because I will not humiliate. I will not judge. I will do my due diligence to be kind. I have had the privilege of getting to know a lady who had 4 distinct personalities that manifested themselves unbeknownst to her, I think, unbeknownst to her. And I tried so hard to understand, but it's kind of like a dear friend of mine, let's say, the love of his life, of 32 years of marriage, and she passed. And it was one of the, well, I like to say rare, but it was a death directly related to COVID. Nowadays, every death is directly related to COVID, because that's the only way that you as a people will be taught to fear. And as such, through fear, will be taught to acquiesce. It's like child abuse. A dear friend of mine, and I mean a dear friend of mine whom I would never mention, is his name, was terribly abused as a 3-year-old child by a stepdad. I want you who are single with children to know something. When you remarry, you inadvertently are taking someone into your home, most often a man, who can do more damage to your children than ever they deserve, because they don't deserve abuse. A true abuser, I met one. I watched what he did with me, to me, this year. Not a sexual abuser, but a psychological abuser. And I studied everything that I could remember, and I remembered well, in spite of his best efforts, to take control of me. And I mean, well, one day I will write a book. It'll be on video. But not until all the legal situations are taken care of now. Of all those whom I have called friend, too many of them chose to believe that abuser. And they would look at me and say, I don't like the Jim that you have become. I love the Jim that we knew 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. But I don't know what to do with you. I don't know that I choose to believe you. One of the greatest problems that children who have been abused, who grow into adults, have is that they don't want to let on to anyone what they grew up in, because they know they will not be believed. You want to fulfill the degradation of a child whose body has gone through so much agony. Their minds have gone through so much agony, recrimination. And you wonder why adult children of abuse won't talk about it. And in that they won't talk about it, they can't receive help to deal with it, because they have been abused. If they try to explain the hurt and the agony, no one wants to listen, because They don't believe. They don't believe that wounded child. Children who have been abused, they are physically abused, yes, okay. But they're also psychologically abused in that an abuser, a true abuser, will say, look at what you made me do, because you in your innocence of a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old child. That's what abusers do. And for those of you who have heard of, in a family, the possibility that a child who's incidentally, whose personality changes overnight, who all of a sudden starts eating too much or too little, who changes so terribly, so horribly. And it used to be that we were taught, don't let anyone know. Even some of our families would say, don't let anyone know, because it is more important that we control what people know about us in order to control what people say about us and think about us. If you're there and you have a child who is being abused, then God forgive you. God forgive you. I don't know that you'll ever forgive yourself, because our Creator, yes, He gave freedom of choice, and He could not draw the lines and say, you are not allowed to hurt a little one. I have a dear friend named Helen. She's long since passed, and she killed her husband because her husband traded milk, bread to the delivery guy for the use of his 11-year-old daughter. Listen, children, you may not watch this because it may not have the right title. You may not watch this because you yourself were abused, and I'm telling you, you do not want to hear about that anymore. That's something you want to forget. But if you live your life pretending to forget, yet remembering every horrifying moment that you were abused, you will be hard-pressed to find that solace, that place of healing, that ointment that will take those wounds after days, months, years, tens of years, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And those wounds will still be open. They will still be bleeding. Because we were made, built, assembled, put together by God. We were given freedom of choice. Choose ye now whom you will serve, good or evil. But children, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to those baby children. My heart goes out to adult children who have been abused. It's been a long time since I I painted this picture for you. A large crowded room. A lady sits leaning against the wall in the corner on the floor. Her knees are pulled up almost in a fetal position. Her arms are stretched out over her knees, and her head is resting on her arms. And tears of heartbreak. Sometimes living in such condemnation, because that's how she was taught. That's how they do it. That's how abusers do it. And she cannot find a way to tell someone, because she knows she's tried. They won't believe her. Shoot. Well over half the people that watched what happened to me this summer and this spring, they wouldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. Because they chose not to allow themselves to see. We try to look away from the brokenhearted. Okay, let's go back to the corner. That beautiful, beautiful woman, I'm not talking on the outside. Children of abuse, they generally try to make themselves look so unfavorable so as to protect themselves from ever being wanted by anyone again. Many times, all they want is a chance to be loved. So let's watch that lady in the corner as she stands up. And though her tears are no longer falling on the outside, they will always fall on the inside until the day comes when she can take that broken heart, that little girl child. People don't understand. Most adult children who have been abused still have that little baby girl living on the inside, and in their mind, their job is to protect that little girl, and they do it in many different ways. And I don't understand them all. Hey, I'm a rancher. I'm a man who chose at 2 years of age, perhaps younger, to believe in a loving, kind God. And I understand. You who choose not to believe in God, hey, I understand. You say, how can anyone believe in a God who allows such terrible things to happen to children? It's called freedom of choice, children. You can't extend freedom of choice because all freedom costs something. And oh sad it is. Sad it is when it costs little ones everything they have and are. Don't be hard on God. You be hard on the abusers, because they chose, and they will pay. And even God's so merciful that there is nothing on this earth that he will not forgive you of if you humble yourself and pray. Con artists, abusers, they think all I have to do is convince those who are around me. No, children, there is a place called heaven. There is a place called hell. And some of those little baby children who have been abused and are now adults, they are still living in a true hell. I have said many times, there's a special place for that young man who purposed in his heart to abuse me in hell. Unless that fatherless child repents, he will find where that is. Because God will bring every work into the light of day. There is nothing that you can do, have done, that God will not make known public. Public, children, your only hope is to ask God to forgive you and own the responsibility for the pain that you have caused. And those who stand around condoning, because unless you speak up, you are agreeing with those abusers. Sorry, I just wanted to say that. God bless you. Don't turn away from those who hurt, because but for the grace of God, there go I, there go you.